3, 2, 1. We've connected with something. We gotta keep going. We gotta talk to it.
Sweetheart, let me handle it.
With no further ado, the writer-director of Host and Dashcam and the director of The Boogeyman in theaters right now. If you haven't gone to see this, go see it, man. It is Mr. Rob Savage. Rob, welcome to the show, man.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Welcome.
Doing well. Thank you for joining. See, I told you he's an Evil Dead 2 fan. Look right behind him.
I see that.
Who is
Beautiful.
an Evil Dead 2 fan? You shouldn't be having them on your show if they're not an Evil Dead 2 fan.
Right.
That's right. That's right.
Yes, we love it. Welcome, sir.
Yeah, I told Zigzag to grab his Evil Dead hat before the show this time because I knew you were an Evil Dead 2 fan from a previous interview I'd seen.
Nepconomicon representative here. We got this.
Amazing, amazing. I like the Fog t-shirt as well. That's one of my favorites.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I actually just picked this up in Texas, and I'm wearing it because one of our other viewers just got it in Pasadena.
Yeah.
So.
Somebody just sent me something like John Carpenter's just directed a TV show from his couch.
Yes. Yes.
What a legend.
I think he's stealing ideas from you with Host.
I was going to say, like, I did that first. I was the pioneer of lazy filmmaking.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
If you do it like that, brilliant. Just, yeah, you're fine. You're fine.
Absolutely. All right. Well, first off, I want to start with, can you tell us how you initially got involved in this project, and how did you react when you were approached about directing a Stephen King adaptation? I imagine that would just be a dream for any horror filmmaker.
Yeah, I mean, it came off the back of Host. You know, Host blew up in this huge way that none of us expected. And immediately I was just offered like so many different scripts. So, you know, all these different horror production companies took note. And one of the scripts I got offered was Boogeyman, which was at the time written by Beck and Woods, who had done Quiet Place. So it was Stephen King, the writers of A Quiet Place, and this great title based on a short story that I remembered reading this short story in Night Shift back when I was, you know, a terrified little kid, and I remembered how it messed me up back then, and yeah, I mean, it's a daunting thing to enter into the pantheon of Stephen King movies, you know, where so many great directors have trodden. But you know, I remember reading the script and just feeling like I knew exactly what I could do with it and what it needed to be, and that version of the movie, the script that I read was very different from what we ended up putting on screen, but the kind of bones of it were there, and they'd found this kind of amazing way to adapt the short story, but then build it out into a something that earned a 90-minute runtime.
Right.
And Beck and Woods put it in a great way, which I'm just going to totally steal from them. They say our movie is kind of an adaptation of Stephen King's short story and a sequel to the short story,
right,
all wrapped up in one, which I think is a lovely way of putting it.
Yeah, and I like the way that's put. I saw that in a previous interview that you had done also, that you mentioned that too.
Yeah.
Now, the original short story, which I actually read again last night, only 12 pages, but encapsulates the meeting in Dr. Harper's office as Lester Billings is telling his horrific story of how he killed his children. Can you explain what wasn't working for you in the original script that you got, and how you kind of helped reshape it by switching the protagonist from Dr. Harper to his kids, Sadie and Sawyer, and even made the children sisters, because I knew one was originally a boy.
Yeah. Well, the thing that originally struck me about the short story when I read it as a kid is it's very adult. It's it's about this very real world trauma. This guy whose first child at least has seemingly died a cop death, and it's you know, in the Lester Billings in the short story is this very nasty piece of work, you know, very reminiscent of a lot of those kind of early King characters.
Well, it's definitely a 70s story, and it's a kind of character you would not like in a modern day horror tale. So
No. And the movie, you know, the short story, there's a reason he's like that, and the short story kind of breaks him down to the point where he's kind of willing to accept help from the therapist, and then, you know, anyone who's read the short story knows how well that goes for him. But the adaptation, Beckenwood's take on it was much more like in the world of adults. It followed Will Harper, who was the dad and the therapist, and it felt like we were doing two things with this movie. We had to honor Stephen King's short story. This was Stephen King's The Boogeyman, but it's also the Boogeyman. You've got to try and make the definitive, most terrifying version of that character. And
there's barrels of Boogeyman movies out there. So yes, this is a challenge in itself to make something stand apart from all of those. And and I think you nailed it, man.
So yeah, I mean that was the thing. It's like a younger audience is going to come to this movie not knowing the short story, knowing the Boogeyman, or, you know, the kind of concept of the Boogeyman. And so it felt like, in order to honor both of those things, we needed to have younger protagonists. We needed to have at least one of our kind of central protagonists be about the age that you first experienced the Boogeyman, you know, the idea that there's something lurking in the darkness, and that this was kind of almost about taking those familiar things that you're first scared of as a kid. It's the dark basement, it's under your bed, it's in the closet. Taking these things that we've outgrown and making them terrifying again, you know, and using King's story almost as like a springboard into that.
Okay, Colonel, you got a question? Do you want to jump in?
Yeah, just kind of speaking about the characters. This movie hit home for me quite a bit. So I'm a single father raising two girls by myself that are about the same age difference as, you know. So it was like, wow, this like movie really hit home. I want to get along the little technical aspect. I love the lighting of this film. I have bright rooms, but every corner is so dark.
Yeah.
Like, how did you go about doing that through the daytime scenes? Because, like I said, it's brilliant lighting throughout the whole movie.
Yeah. Well, I got to shout out Eli Bourne, who's our amazing cinematographer. One of the references that I gave him was this movie, The Innocents, which is my favorite haunted house movie from 1962. And they do great things with like keeping a lot of darkness in the frame, even though it's, you know, there's daylight streaming through the windows. There's always areas of darkness in the frame, so you're always on edge. And it was really one of the benefits of having a bit more budget on this movie. We were able to actually build the houses, so everything in the movie is a set pretty much. And so I was able to consult with Eli and consult with Jeremy Woodward, our production designer, to make sure that we had these practical lamps and things like little sources of light within the room. But the room was designed and the lighting was designed in such a way that there was always drop off and there was always these kind of shadowy realms for the creature to exist in. And, you know, I was looking really at haunted house movies rather than monster movies. And one of the things that I was trying to do, you know, in the same way that like in Jaws, it's the fin above the water, and then, you know, you don't need to see the rest of the shark. I wanted that to be the darkness with the Boogeyman. So, you know, a lot of the time in the first half of the movie, it's just these kind of cat's eyes staring at you from the dark, or you catch a glimpse of a limb disappearing into the darkness. And so, you know, I wanted the audience to feel like every time there was darkness in the frame, the Boogeyman was there. Even if he's not, even if he doesn't jump out, there was something for you to be looking into, some darkness to stare into.
No, it was brilliant because, I was looking in those shadows the entire time. Like,
thank you.
There. I know he's there. It was great.
Well, while we're talking about the cinematography, I wanted to ask you one thing, because one of the things I noticed about the cinematography was a lot of the film featured very smooth and guided camera work. Yes. But when Sadie was dealing with an emotional or frightening scene, the camera switched to more of a handheld and unsteady kind of sort. Yeah. Can you explain your reasoning in separating her character in that manner visually? Was that just to show her emotionally unstable self through the lens?
I think her world is falling apart throughout the movie. I mean, it's an you know, her father exists in the world of the rational, so everything, you know, his office, the house, like everything is like very squared off and rational and robust. and the way that we shoot his stuff is very, it's very much in that style, and the camera moves in this very glacial way. And in the same way, Sawyer, the youngest, her world is very solid. She believes in monsters. When there's a monster that runs out and runs under her bed, it's confirming something she already knows. She's already, believing in these kind of things. Whereas Sadie she's grown out of those childish beliefs, but she's not quite like a fully, she's not quite fully in the world of adulthood. And so her world is crumbling and splintering around her. And so when she starts to, when her worldview starts to kind of shift and she starts to believe in some of these things that her kid sister is talking about, I wanted to feel like her very foundation was becoming unstabilized. Like she was there with her friends, and that's a very precarious situation. And as as she's starting to have this realization that, it's all real, she's still having to kind of smile and nod and say, no, I'm fine, and try and kind of grasp onto some stability in her friend group. But I was trying to represent that with the handheld and that feeling of disorientation around her.
Okay. All right, Ziggy, jump in there.
Yeah, something I've noticed in your style of filmmaking, from Host to Dashcam to the Boogeyman, is your timing of the jump scare.
Uh-huh.
You have a way, and you see them coming a mile away, but they still hit you like a fucking truck every time. Was this thought out? How do you come to this, and where you can deliver like that when you can see it? There it is. It still gets you 100% every time.
I think it's just knowing and loving horror. I know where every scare is going to come from in every horror movie I watch. I can see the foundations being laid, and so like I have a lot of fun trying to get ahead of what horror fans are expecting and the rhythm that they're expecting. And I know that they're going to see what I've got coming, but I'm going to deliver it in a way that's slightly different. And there's always moments in horror movies where people like us can watch it and we know when it's okay to check our phone. We know, and then so there's a scene in this movie where there's a pretty big daytime scare that happens right in the middle of a scene, and it's meant to be one of those moments where you as an audience member think you can drop your guard a little. And it's James Wan has a thing where he talks about not the normal rhythm of a scare is 1, 2, 3, and you do the jump on 3. And he said, my career is basically making the audience wait until 7 or 8. And that's it. We've got some scares in this movie that happen on 1. There's no build up. And some scares we try and stretch it all the way to 10.
Oh, I jostled my popcorn more than once today.
Woo! Yeah, and I love the reaction this is, because I've now seen it twice in the theater, and I love the reaction that this is getting with audience members. It's one of the first times in a long time that I've seen the majority of the theater actually react, which is nice. So
no, it's designed that way. It's designed to be a big screen popcorn horror movie. It's a PG-13, so it's open to a wider audience, and it's really meant to be about as far as you can push a PG-13. And we want those big reactions. You want to feel like the bar goes down and you're on a roller coaster from the moment it starts.
Right. Well, and you can't fault the timing of a good jump scare. Okay, that's enough. We left that in there from a previous episode, and I saw it. And I was like, I'm going to use that at some point.
Yeah, I don't show it on the outside.
Well, I'm not a Hollywood director yet either, so give me time. I could have timed it a little better. I know we talked briefly about this, but I love the fact that you did switch the protagonist from the dad to the daughters, because to me that makes the stakes so much higher in a film, especially when children are the focus. And most of the time, the key to solidifying a film like this is finding young actors such as Sophie Thatcher and Vivian Lyra Blair. By the way, happy birthday to Vivian.
Yes.
That was yesterday. For those lead roles. When casting this, did you know what you were looking for from the actors, and how did Sophie and Vivian stand out to you where you said, these two are sisters, this is the one, or the two?
I think with Sophie, I didn't know specifically what I was looking for, but it's the kind of thing that you know it when you see it, because that person's really got to carry the whole movie on their shoulders. It's got to be somebody who can who can take you through a lot of the nuts and bolts stuff in a way that's compelling and likable, and that you want to invest in that character. It's also somebody who's going to bring, a kind of weight to that performance, because they've got to go to a lot of very intense places, and Sophie was every single day having to push herself to these emotional extremes. And the thing that sold me on Sophie, not that I needed selling, but I jumped on a Zoom with her the first time. I hadn't really seen any of Yellow Jackets. I watched one episode, a little bit of an episode before we jumped on, but I came on and I was wearing a T-shirt for Possession, the Andrzej Zawadzki movie, and she immediately spotted it and said, "Oh, I love Possession." And then, we were talking about these weird art house horror movies. She's such a huge horror fan. And so with her, it was like, one, she's a fantastic actor. She's a likable presence. She understood the character, she understood what she needed to bring and the level she needed to bring to it. But at the same time, she's doing a lot of stuff where she's walking down a hallway following a strange noise, or she's reaching out slowly to open a closet door, and she understood the pacing and the requirements of the horror genre and how to sell that and how to make that believable. And so we were working in partnership to make these scenes happen. It wasn't, oh, trust me, this will be scary when we cut it together. She understood her part in building these scares, which was essential. And then Vivian, I knew that this character needed to be the beating heart of this movie. It needed to be somebody who had a real personality, a real sense of humor, somebody that would bring a lot of themselves to the role. And from the first Zoom call with Vivian, it was clear that she's just an exceptional human being. And she was 9 years old when we shot this, and she is a 9-year-old. She's got this amazing sense of play, but she's also amazingly kind of wise and intelligent and emotionally intelligent, and amazing ability to dial in her performance in a way that a seasoned actor would be able to. And so I just wanted to capture a bit of her personality on screen, because she a lot of the funniest, a lot of my favorite moments in this movie, it was her riffing, it was her improvising, it was us playing around with the scene. It wasn't necessarily in the script, it was the way she delivered a line, which you wouldn't expect. So we got a lot of her in the DNA of this movie, which I love so much.
Nice. I have a theory that child actors and younger actors have just gotten better over time, from 70s and 80s child actors to now. And I would love to pick your brain at some point about why do you think that is, or a lot of directors' brains, why do you think that is? But I want to throw it to Ziggy for another question, because I know he had one.
I did. With the CGI, with the creature, itself, was there any ever discussions? Did you ever have any meetings to go practical, or some of it practical at all? I mean, this is one thing I heard people saying, the CGI again, but I can tell it doesn't matter if it's CGI, they're not going to like it. I think this one's pretty good. It's definitely scary, but I was just curious, was there ever any discussion to go the practical route with it? Yeah,
I wanted to go practical. I think ultimately the things that this creature has to do, and the kind of way it has to move, and the speed and agility and the crawling on the ceilings, there would have always been quite a hefty CG portion. One of the things that I was pushing for was partial practical, so having hands or feet and practical, and then kind of building it out. The honest truth is we just ran out of time, because it took so long to hit upon the perfect design for this creature that we were about a week or 2 weeks out of shooting, so we didn't have time to build the creature suit. But what we did do, which is why a large part of why the effects look so good, is we printed a 3D creature head. Actually, wait, I've got it here on my shelf. We printed a 3D creature head. This guy. And then we were able to have that on set. Eli was able to light it, and so we could send that then to the VFX people and say, well, look, this is what a real creature head looks like in the real space with the real light bouncing off it. So they had that as a reference. And if it didn't look as good as that or as real as that, I could kick it back and say, no, it's got to look at least as good as that.
Nice.
Thank you.
All right.
It's great. It's great.
Oh yeah. The creature effect is great.
All right. I'll be honest. It's going to be hard to follow up that question. And I'm trying to think how to word this without any spoilers. I'm a huge fan of your previous work.
Yes.
How difficult was it to get those Easter eggs in the movie? Because I was literally in the theater. I did the Leonardo DiCaprio meme where I was like,
You know what? It was the first thing that I shot. I shot it one evening, glass of wine. Me and that person who I won't spoil, we shot it remotely, and they were totally for it, and it was kind of my way of saying, this is as much my movie as both of those two. You know, both of those two movies, I made it with a small crew, with no money, complete control. This one, like, I didn't have those same controls, but it felt like I did. It never got to the point where I was railroaded on anything that I disagreed with in the studio. It always went my way. I was always able to get the movie that I wanted on screen, and so that was just a little nudge to the audience that this is in the same world. This is one of three with those movies. You know, it's been 3 years, 3 movies, nice. And even though this one's on a much bigger canvas, it's still it comes from the same place. You know.
Oh, it's obvious. It's got that. It's got the Rob Savage feel to it.
Well, I'm really glad.
Yeah, man. No bullshit. I mean, with Host when that came out, we made that our #1 movie that year. Out of all everything that came out, absolutely.
And we all agreed on it, which is weird.
Yeah.
Oh, I really appreciate that.
Big time.
Yeah, Host blew me away. I've probably watched it at least a dozen times since 2020. Absolutely love it.
Thank you. I'm super proud of that one. So that means a lot.
I mean, everything that was going on, using that technology the way you did, and I'd love to hear the setup of the joke that led to that too. But I mean, and the fact that you're wearing earbuds while watching this movie, I mean, there was nowhere to go, no escape, and I got blown back in my chair a couple of times in that one, and I love it. It's definitely one of my all times, man.
Yeah, it's the only movie I think in history where the director wants you to watch it on your laptop.
Very, very few want you to do that. That's for sure. Yeah. I heard you say at one point you had a stack of DVDs in the office that just played on a loop for inspiration for the rest of the crew. What are some of those films that are in that stack?
Oh, what was on there? So I had Satan's Slaves, the Yoko Anwar movie, Yoko Anwar, which is great. I had The Changeling was a big one that was on rotation. There was a movie I was referencing a lot for the kind of balance of like great meaty performance, the way it deals with loss, and then just incredible scares. And you know, anyone who's seen both of those movies know that rolling a ball down a hallway and a set of stairs plays into both of them. So that was the origin of some of our ball gags in that. I'd Let the Right One In, and also Let Me In, which was a big reference for the visuals. And then God, all sorts. I had all of James Wan's Conjuring movies. I had Dead Silence as well. Yeah, kind of all sorts, and then a lot of like haunted house movies as well. So I had Poltergeist. I had The Innocents and The Haunting were big ones that we were watching. A lot of those kind of old haunted house movies, and then also the Paranormal Activity movies as well.
Really? Okay.
Even though they were found footage, like I wanted that sense of making your house unsafe and unsettling, and making that the kind of the battleground for something demonic. And those movies, especially the first one, do that so well.
That first one
destabilizing.
Definitely broke some doors down. First Paranormal, that was hair standing up on your neck and shit. That was crazy.
Yeah, it's been a while since something's done that to me.
I would say fucking Host.
I think you did it to us. So that's the good thing.
I would say Host.
Well, I'm trying to watch the clock for us because I know we only got you for a limited time, but I do want to finish with this. What's next for Rob Savage? Are you still locked into the 3-picture deal with Blumhouse? And what can you tell us about Night of the Ghoul or See Home? Or even, have you spoken to Stephen King yet about doing the Langoliers?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, I've been messaging with Steve, and the first thing, the first email that he sent me was he very kindly said, I'd love to find something else to do together. And I've been wanting to do an adaptation of the Langoliers for the longest time.
It needs one.
So I pitched that to him, and he seemed really excited by it. So we're trying to we're trying to unpick the rights for that, and whether it'll happen or not, I don't know. But I've got a great, really exciting take on that that I hope happens. And then what else? There's another kind of like demonic monster movie that I'm working on that's based on one of my short films called Salt, which has got an incredible script and is really unlike anything I've seen in the horror space for a long time. So that one is ready to go, and I'm hoping that one gets going soon. We've got a really, really cool idea for Boogeyman 2, if the numbers make sense on that. Which
I was going to say, considering how we're left with that one, and by the way, nice nod to the novel there, man, at the end.
Thank you.
Yeah, I like that little twist you did with the short story.
I was going, oh
ending.
shit, here we go, you know.
Right.
Yeah, man. Yeah, go ahead, please.
No, so yeah, that's it's probably the idea that we've got that I'm really excited about. The studio's excited about it. Mark Heyman, the writer of this movie, we've come up with this great idea, which even if it wasn't in the Boogeyman universe, I would be so excited to tell this story because it's such a new mode of horror that I've never tried before. It's something I've wanted to do for a long time, and it builds on and deepens the mythology of this movie. And if the film gods deem it so, we might be making that. And then Night of the Ghoul, we've got a draft of that came in just before the writers' strike. That's really strong. Mark Heyman is writing that as well.
Nice.
That's what can I tell you about that? That's an adaptation of a fantastic comic. We've kind of taken it off in our own direction, but it's really creepy and scary. It's kind of our version of a cursed object movie. It's my version of The Ring, but with a nasty creature in it.
Very nice.
That was.
Well, man, Rob, I can't thank you enough for joining us tonight, and I hope we kept it to the time as much as we could. I want to shout out to Mia and Greg at DDR for helping us hook this up.
Thank you.
And good luck on the film, man. And
keep forging the path, brother, because you're carving your way to carte blanche in this industry. You're going to be able to do what you want, man. You're on your way.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're on my list, definitely, of directors to watch more of now. So I can't wait for the next one. So
looking forward to it.
Thanks so much, guys.
All right. Well, have a good one. We'll see you next time, hopefully.
See you on the next one.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
All right. Wow. There he goes.
Rob Savage, ladies and gentlemen.
You know.
Oh, in the optic glass. But wait, there's more.
It's showtime. We all go a little mad sometimes.